All right, tis I. I am sitting here thinking about all the news that's going on. You're looking at 100, the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and it feels like you're just being bombarded with a whole lot of stuff at one time. And in some cases, actually, you are. You are being bombarded with a whole lot of information at one time as he's going through all of these executive orders, and it just making your head spin. And honestly, a lot of that's intentional. We're just going to throw everything at you at one time. Everything we can. Just overload, overload, overload. And information overload. Nonstop. Apparently, I did not know this, but it's a strategy. I just found out that the strategy is called flooding the zone. And what that means is it's a deliberate strategy of inundating the public and media with an overwhelming amount of information. And it includes press releases, social media posts, speeches, policy announcements, misinformation, and disinformation. A lot of misinformation and disinformation. I repeat, misinformation and disinformation all mixed in at one time. And that's easy nowadays because you've got this massive television network that does that nonstop 24/7. And then you go online and you've got podcasts that do the exact same thing. You've got numerous options as to who you can listen to at any given time. And chances are, more than likely, you're not getting the full story, but you're getting a whole bunch of not the full story at one time. And that in and of itself creates a huge problem when you're trying to go through this information and decipher what's true and what's not. And usually what ends up happening is you've got two separate echo chambers, one right wing and one, the rest of us, normal people. And that's kind of a sucky place to be because it's like a situation now where it's a divide and conquer scenario. You've got one side pitted against the other based on whatever media outlets you're watching. And that's too bad. It should just really be about the facts. But some organizations, news organizations, media outlets have mastered the art of disinformation and misinformation and half-truths to a point where you can't get people to look outside of that for any more information, actually. And it's like, it's just too bad. It really is. But at the same time, it can be overwhelming. Mechanics of flooding the zone. Politicians notoriously love this option or love these options. I mean, for instance, let's take a look, shall we? It says politicians and their teams employ various tactics to flood the zone. Frequent announcements, constant updates on policies, plans, and opinions to ensure that their voice remains prominent in the public discourse. Social media engagement, utilizing platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to rapidly disseminate information and engage directly with constituents, which in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's not bad to do that. It's when you are providing misinformation and disinformation, and that's your intent. Like, you know good and well what you're telling people is not true, but in order to grab them, you will tell them whatever narrative fits their own personal beliefs. And that in of itself is how we got here, to be quite honest with you. Numerous media appearances, regular interviews, press conferences, and participating in news programs to maintain visibility, which some claim may have been what catapulted Trump to this particular situation as far as being our next president of the United States. They claim that his online presence was what made it happen for him. Some are claiming that Kamala did not do a good job of utilizing these platforms as well as Trump did. Democrats, not good with this, never really have been in general. I think they didn't realize what an impact social media and an online presence has. I think now they're now getting that message. And it's, too little too late now. But the fact of the matter is, many credit, even Trump himself, credit the online presence, especially TikTok, which is now why he wants to all of a sudden keep it, for his success in getting back into the White House. You got surrogates, spokespersons on every outlet, engaging supporters and affiliated spokespersons to echo and amplify the politician's message. Whether it's true or not, they go out and say it. It gets out there into that whole webosphere, and then everybody else is believing it, and then they're regurgitating the same thing that has been said, even though it is not true. Man, I swear, it's crazy. Crazy how all of that is so true. What are the effects? You know, what happens to the public when this type of situation occurs? For instance, let's take a look. The strategy of flooding the zone can have several impacts and several effects on public perception and media. Public perception, a big one. Information overload. The sheer volume of information can overwhelm the public, making it difficult to discern important facts from noise. That, right there, that is what's happening now. And I think that is actually the strategy. You can shape narratives this way by controlling the flow of information, especially if there's a whole bunch of it coming at you at one time. Politicians can shape public narratives and influence opinions more effectively. Oh, gee, we see that a lot. You've got one television station, one network whose sole purpose is just that. And then you've got several podcasts who sort of add on to that. Well, there you go. Distraction tactics, of course. Flooding the zone can be used to distract from negative news or controversies, shifting the focus to more favorable topics. And what I've discovered is the shift to more favorable topics ends up being the news in some instances. Depending upon the outlet that you're watching, they only focus on the more favorable topics, and you're left with a void. You don't get all of the information, and that's intentional too. So if you stay on one news network, you're not going to get every piece of information that you need. That's intentional. Effects on the public also, skepticism. And that's a huge one that I'm discovering. Skepticism, distrust. Over time, the constant flow of information is bound to create that. That saturation can lead to public skepticism and distrust in the political communication. And that's what we're seeing now. So everybody, all of a sudden, I say everybody, but most of America then starts to just tune out, which is the last thing we need people to do right now. It's easy to just tune out because you assume, well, they're all lying anyway. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't matter because nothing that's coming out of this communication process is true anyway. Both sides lie. Nobody's telling the truth. Why even bother to tune in? You bother to tune in, and hopefully something like what I'm doing tries to make the process a little bit easier. I'll do the homework for you. You just take it in. Maybe it will encourage others, such as yourself, to go and do a little bit more research and understand that there is actual solid information out there for you to pick up on. There really is. And I feel for journalists, especially the ones that are actually trying to provide real information for us. It must suck, man, the challenges for them and the challenges for the outlets, like resource strain. Keeping up with the constant flow of information requires substantial resources and can strain journalistic capabilities. Fact-checking. Hello! Fact-checking. Now that nobody wants to fact-check anymore. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, X. Oh, we're getting away from fact-checking. Blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. Fact-checking. The need to verify and fact-check a high volume of information can slow down reporting and increase the risk of errors. And you know what? I'm starting to think that maybe that too is part of the strategy. I mean, the man lies as easily as he breathes. So, and it's just nonstop. And of course, this is why, we had issues with the debates, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. He doesn't want to be on certain interview outlets because he doesn't want to be fact-checked. And now all of a sudden these media platforms, these social media platforms, they don't want to fact-check. Gee, I wonder why. And now you also have to think about the balance of coverage if you're a journalism outlet. Ensuring balanced coverage becomes a challenge when one political figure dominates the news cycle. You think? And you know what? Again, I think it's a strategy, because even during the Biden administration, it just seems like we were always talking about Trump. So yeah, there's all of that. My suggestions, just be vigilant in what you're listening to and what you're watching. Some options here that I'm noticing. Let's see, what does it say? Strategies for managing information overload. Well, let's take a look. Critical consumption, encouraging critical thinking and discernment in consuming political information, which is a really, really tough task nowadays, because it's just so easy to take in information that already goes with what your own personal beliefs are. It's just easy just to follow that information. Oh, well, they're saying things that I already agree with. I'm just going to stay here. Whether you have correct information or not, that's where you're going to stay. If that narrative fits your personal belief, you're staying put. And it does not matter whether that information is true or not, right? Diversified sources, which is what I try to do when I share information, relying on multiple news sources to get a balanced view of political events. Nobody seems to want to do that anymore. They hammer in on that one news source that provides them with everything that fits their own personal beliefs, everything that fits their own personal narratives. That's the news source they go with, and you cannot remove them from anything. Nothing is going to take them away from that news source, regardless, again, if that information is even correct. They don't care. It goes with what I believe, so I'm going with it. And then media literacy, promoting media literacy education to help individuals navigate complex information landscapes. I don't know how to even begin to tackle that one. Slow news movement, supporting journalism that prioritizes depth and accuracy over speed and volume. Yeah, again, that takes time and patience. And people nowadays, they want instant everything. They got those instant news clips, that clickbait, that scintillating headline, and that's what you go with. All I'm saying is really media literacy. Really. Educate yourself on navigating this information landscape. Another thing is to breathe. Breathe. Take a breath. Don't freak out, because there's so much coming in at you at one time. Breathe and understand that we will get through this, okay? All right. Thank you.